Greetings, fellow humans. I am Hugh.
And I am Man.
And together we are definitely not two kobolds in a trench coat. We enjoy human activities, such as paying taxes,
having existential crises,
and RPG horror stories. Let's see what we've got today. Today, we have a DM who forces a player to Captain Kirk their way out of every situation. The new hit game show. Is it SA or necrophilia? And exactly what you'd expect when a fundy Christian plays D&D. DM kept making my character seduce my way out of combat and do uncomfortable things. By Reddit user, Dry Presentation 4300. So I was out with some friends, and one of them brought along their brother. He was pretty quiet, and I noticed he was wearing an Elden Ring shirt, so I figured I'd start a conversation. We ended up talking about games for a bit, and I landed on D&D. I mentioned how I've been looking to play it for over a year now, and he said he was an experienced DM and we should start a table. I was super excited. Then he made this comment about how I don't look like I'm into that kind of stuff, whatever that means. It's not an unusual comment, but he kept going on about it for a good 5 minutes till the point where I was just awkwardly smiling and nodding. First red flag. We exchanged numbers, and a week later he reached out so we could set something up with his friends. So session 0 comes around, and it's all fun and games. He's a bit bossy with my character, but I didn't mind since it was my first time and figured he was just trying to help. He said he'd generate character pics for us, which I was super excited about. Later that night he sends over the images, and mine had huge boobs and was wearing an outfit that looked very much like the one I was wearing when we met, which was kind of a one-piece catsuit, pretty specific. This made me really uneasy, but I still tried to rub it off as him being harmlessly weird. Since he was very nice when we met, I tend to think everyone is very nice.
Alright, already big alarm bells going off. Just, ew.
Don't you mean big hooters going off?
Well, there was definitely some big hooters involved.
Yeah, that's already a huge red flag. Well, 2 huge red flags. I'm sorry, I can't help myself.
It's the audacity, the audacity to create a character for somebody and give them just giant bazongas for no reason. I feel like you should ask before you design somebody's character and give them giant cans,
Things just started progressively getting weirder from there. During one session, he suggested my character use charm to get out of combat, but then it kept happening. He'd always find a way to steer things in that direction. Whether it was a guard blocking the path, an NPC with useful information, or a monster, he'd suggest that my character seduce them to get what we needed. And the reward for doing so would always be something really valuable to the group, like critical information or an item that could make a difference in the next encounter. So it was hard to say no. At one point, he made a cutscene where a monster pinned my character to the floor and licked her body from head to toe. You good there, man?
I'm good. I mean, no, I'm not good. Of course I'm not good. How am I good? But keep going. No, I have to say something. Just because it happens in D&D or in an RPG does not mean that it's not harassment. I know that the lines get a little blurry when we're talking about role-playing games, but if you haven't cleared this sort of stuff with your player beforehand, and even if they are going along with it, that doesn't mean that it's consensual. It just means that they didn't say no, and that is not a yes.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious the DM just created his own fantasy in his head and is now using D&D to act it out of what he's literally thinking of doing to OP.
It's not even about OP. It's about the fact that he has a female at his table, and so he's just has the opportunity now. I mean, as impersonal as that sounds, it's not personal. He's just a perv, and you happen to be the unlucky female to cross his path.
He'd often put me in situations where it was either death or engaging in these weird fantasies, like, do you want to seduce them or attack 5 mimics by yourself? Which ended up in some very long, weird and detailed interactions when I inevitably chose to seduce them, disguised as a joke. He would make such weird comments like how a monster could smell my fertility, or how I attracted them with my femininity. Another time he had me sneak past a naked troll and described in great detail how the size of his balls were big enough to choke me to death. He'd also do things like saying one of his friend's characters had a debuff from having a boner because of me. Just very, very odd stuff. His friends just seemed to laugh it off as a joke and apparently thought it was funny for some reason. After the monster licking, naked troll and incident, I mentioned I wouldn't be able to join the next session because I had plans with my boyfriend. It was just an excuse while I thought about how to approach that I wasn't joining anymore, which apparently he wasn't aware of, even though we have pictures together on Instagram and we've been together for 5 years, so it's widely known in our friend group. I went on with my day and later found he had sent me a bunch of texts on WhatsApp but deleted them, so I couldn't read them. He also messaged the group saying he was going through some personal issues and cancelled the whole campaign. Edit. I later told my friend, his brother, about the text, and apparently he was upset I didn't tell him I have a boyfriend and felt led on. I don't see why I need to actively announce my relationship status to everyone I talk to, or why it matters for a D&D game. We just had a normal friendly interaction. So this whole thing was his way of trying to date me or something. I'm so confused as to why he thinks making me seduce goblins, trolls, and getting licked by monsters would be somehow attractive or make me want to be with him. Anyway, very traumatizing for a first and only experience, although I can't help but laugh at how crazy this was. LMAO.
Well, I do hope, OP, that for your sake, you can find a fun group and try it again. Not all D&D is like this, I promise! Like I said before, this isn't actually about you or him wanting to be able to date you, he's a perv. And the minute you said boyfriend, he suddenly felt guilty that he'd been perving on another man's woman.
Honestly, this guy's definition of led on is simply, you're a woman who wanted to play D&D and play at his table. I know there's some lonely guys out there, but my god, what a creep. To not only think that clearly meant you were interested in him and leading him on, but then to literally think that subjecting you to his hentai fantasies in game is a great seduction technique. I don't understand where these people come from.
Yeah, nobody does. No, because it's just this idea that putting somebody in a situation where they're being over-sexualized and exposed to just the weirdest stuff. I get that the internet changes your brain, but like, I don't even think touching grass would do this guy any good. Schrödinger's essay / necrophilia by the Murabito. This happened several years ago, but I got more active on Reddit recently and I felt like sharing. I used to join tons of online D&D games with random people online. This was one group that I joined that was already mid-campaign and needed a new player. In the post that they made online about the campaign, it sounded awesome, and after I talked with them on Discord call, they all seemed like pretty fun people, so I was stoked to join them. They were all guys who seemed like a group of bros who had been playing together for a long time. My first session with them began. The party had been exploring the Underdark, and they were currently rowing a shoddy rowboat through the underground lake to try and find some land. I believe my character had accidentally fallen into the Underdark or something like that, but the point is that they came across me and offered to take me aboard, and thus our journey together set off. On the boat, I got to know everyone's characters. Now, I don't really usually make assumptions about people based on the diversity of the party, but it was probably the first time I'd ever played a group of 5, by the way, where every single player was playing a white dude, and I got the vibe that they were probably all white dudes themselves. This isn't super relevant, might not even have a connection to anything whatsoever. I mean, I'm not going to assume anything based on the lack of diversity, or the ethnicities of players, etc. But I guess it was just something that put me off a little bit, since I was so used to playing with super diverse groups of people all the time, which had always made stuff feel more interesting with a plethora of perspectives at the table. It was the first time that just, well, didn't feel like that. Like, these guys were just kind of in their own little bubble as a group, and I wasn't adding any flavor to it being a white dude myself. And it felt like I was kind of outside this little bubble that they had established too, trying to fit in, but not really succeeding. I don't really remember their characters except for one, and I don't remember his name, but I remember that while we were on the boat, I learned that he liked to stick his into random stuff because he did so with the dead fish or something.
I mean, I've never heard of anyone sticking it in a dead fish, although quite famously a recent former British Prime Minister may or may not have, for legal reasons, stuck it inside the mouth of a dead pig while at university. Maybe, allegedly. Probably did. Although I do know a guy who once put his inside a jar of jam, took it out and proclaimed that he is the toast. Henceforth, he was known as Toast.
Okay.
There's no chance he's listening to this.
As everyone else laughed, I thought to myself, oh, okay, are we all just cool playing along with that? I guess adult stuff is fine at this table, all right. I didn't really find it funny myself, but I was a little put off that they just kind of assumed I was okay with it. Nobody had warned me about this sort of thing, but luckily I don't really care about dirty jokes anyway, if people want to make them, so I just went along with it. Let's call the sticks his into stuff guy Dickie. We adventure along and Dickie is going around sticking his chicken and stuff at every turn. I think he probably used it to test traps and got hurt by it at some point. Eventually, we discover some kind of ancient ruin. Of course, we decide to explore. Treasure! To be completely honest, the way the DM ran the dungeon was really good and entertaining. Aside from Dickie, all of the combat was puzzles and stuff that were super fun. The ruin was filled with undead. There wasn't much flesh on bones, though, so Dickie surprisingly didn't have much to do things with. Good, I thought. We eventually make it to the last chamber and defeat the boss there, a wraith. After the fight, there awaited us a sarcophagus at the back of the room, perhaps a treasure that we'd been hoping for. We opened it up, and there indeed is some nice trinkets inside, as well as an unconscious woman. We're all shocked, of course. Is she alive? Is she dead? Her body looks perfectly preserved, so it would be odd if she was dead. We checked her for signs of breathing, but find none. A total mystery. So, then Dickie pipes up, "All right, let me try to stick my in that mouth then." On my side of the screen, I'm appalled. Surely that's going too far. No way the DM is going to let him do that. The DM says, "Sure, go ahead." I'm absolutely flabbergasted. They all roleplay him sticking his chicken in this woman who we don't know is alive or dead. I just stay silent. I don't really remember what we did after that, but that's irrelevant. I told them after the session that I didn't think that I clicked very well and cut contact, and that was that.
You don't think you clicked very well? I'm all for a bit of understatement, but geez. I mean, did you accidentally stumble into a game that somehow contained both Beavis and Butthead and a bunch of Eton first years? Eton's a very posh school in the UK, by the way, that many former prime ministers have been to, including the aforementioned, shall we call him David Cameron.
I mean, I get having a gag, like having a gag character that always has the thing that he does. But yeah, sticking it in somebody that you don't know if they're alive or dead and they certainly aren't consenting, yeah, no, that's way too far. It was kind of funny when they mentioned the whole thing about putting it in the traps. Because that's when you're like, okay, so this is a gag.
It's a shame one of those traps didn't contain a very sharp blade coming down.
Or an explosive.
Or fire ants.
Ooh. It's too bad that dead body didn't have fire ants in it, if it was a dead body.
If only if it was like Imhotep's coffin from the Mummy film, full of scarab beetles.
Right? It's like he puts his chicken in, and then all of a sudden it just turns into scarab beetles. Like, that would have been funny.
No, devoured by scarab beetles.
It's just his whole thing is off. Maybe hit all of him too. But like, yeah, that would be funny. That would be good.
You're attacking my religion. The story of a Christian player who took things too far. By Reddit user She Who Dances. Before we get into things, while this player is a religious person, I know all religious people aren't like this. Anyway, I've been playing TTRPGs on and off for the past few years and found myself dry after leaving a long-time group of friends. So I went to the most reputable places possible to find a game. Requests for online TTRPGs in nerd shops. One Discord invite later, I was in the server meeting the cast. DM. The DM of our party? Actually an absolute excellent person with a few flaws that made this story horrific. Fundy, the problem player. A very religious person who enjoyed passionate sermons. A few other players were present, but they didn't really contribute to the story in a major way. We get to character creation, and I decide to pull out my usual character, a paladin who broke her oath because she was tired of being strict and holy. She was constantly a bit jaded, foul-mouthed, and sat at a 45-degree angle in her seat, being generous. Fundy played a cleric of the, screw it, I'm gonna call it God, because it definitely was meant to be. He had Christian tenets, often spoke Bible verses, so on and so forth.
Oh, that's just so boring.
I'm not even surprised.
No, I'm not either, but like, you have a whole plethora of characters you could be, and you chose to be yourself? Okay, that's a choice.
Session 0 went pretty well, and afterwards Fundy messaged me. He wanted our characters to have a backstory together. Basically, he wanted the church I left to be his, and he was trying to lead me back to the Lord. I agreed because I thought it would be fun RP stuff, and I had no intention to have my character return to God. Agreeing was a bad idea.
You can't see it because this is a recording, but I rolled my eyes so hard I think I might have given myself a headache. Like, I'm genuinely surprised my eyes aren't stuck like that.
Most downtime was spent with Fundy trying to convince my character to abandon her sinful ways and return to his loving embrace. My character, being a bit of an abrasive prick, would tell him, shove off. Or, if he's so loving, why is the world so messed up? Every time I did this, I heard an exacerbated breath from his microphone. Eventually, another player messaged me. He liked how our characters interacted and wondered if they could begin an in-game relationship. I agreed, and this went pretty well. My character started to draw mine out of her edgy, brooding shell, and the two of them shared some pretty adorable moments. Fundy didn't like this.
Wow, didn't see that coming.
I'm not trying to say this story is predictable, but man, this is bloody predictable.
But so many of these conservative Fundy types are just predictable because it's a broken record. It's always the same stuff with them.
His character's long tirades now mentioned her as well. He'd say things like, you don't want to drag her down that path as well. And, women should not lie with one another. You need a man of the cloth, not another woman. My character would try to intimidate him to go away with that. After the session, I messaged the DM to say that Fundy's rhetoric was making me uncomfortable. The DM said that Fundy wasn't like that IRL. He was just playing his character. Don't lie to us, DM. You're lying. Don't lie.
Yeah, it's like secondhand. It's what my character would do, you know, but it's like, it's actually coming from the DM. It's like, it's what his character would do. If your character is being a pain in the butt, then maybe don't be that character.
It's what his character would do because his character is him.
Yeah, he's literally playing himself.
Eventually, Fundy posted some art of our characters. AI generated, quote-unquote, art at that. My character was depicted as a blonde girl with pale skin and gorgeous plate armor. Now, dear readers, my paladin was black with dark brown hair and studded leather armor. When I brought this up to him, he said, well, this is what I imagined her to look like, but whatever you say. I was a bit perturbed by this and messaged the DM again. He said something along the lines of, I can't change what already exists, but I'll talk to Fundy. I don't know if he did.
It always bugs me that it's like Aryan virginal dream that they have of these women where it's like, no, she's, first of all, she's not straight. She's also not white, and she's definitely not blonde. And you assuming that just shows all you care about is your little Aryan Christian dream girl.
Couldn't leave it at home. He had to bring it to D&D. Ruin everyone else's good time.
That's the problem with people like him, is that they can't just leave it at home. They got to make it everybody's problem. That's why we are in the state of life that we are. And of course, it follows us into D&D.
Eventually, things broke down. The player character my character was attached to died, and my character retreated back into her shell. Fundy saw this as time to preach to her again, talking about how this was a prime time to repent for my sins and return to my father, so she may be honoured in heaven. My character said, "Go away or my next sin will be cutting you down." This was just intended as an empty threat, as I'd done this to other player characters, and never followed through, even having my character apologise for being a tool later. Fundy didn't like that. Fundy challenged my character to a duel, saying that if he won, she'd have to return to the Order. Given this was a kind of bad cleric versus an optimized to hell and back paladin, I absolutely whipped his ass. My character healed him, and I decided to be a bit of a jerk, saying, "Maybe if you spent more time learning to fight, you'd be able to convince me." Fundy flipped out, screaming about how I was a cheater, a sinner, a racism, a sexism, a homophobia, and how I should just get some Christian husband to take pity on me. And he ended his initial screaming rampage with, "And you're attacking my religion." The DM kept trying to calm him down, but he kept screaming and screaming. Eventually, I left the call. The DM sent me a message later, apologizing and saying how he didn't see this coming at all. I told him that he was stupid for not seeing it coming, and I was giving him an ultimatum. Either he kicks Fundy or I'm leaving. The DM agreed he made some mistakes and kicked out Fundy, saying his character died in our duel. Fundy sent me a few private messages later, continuing his berating and use of slurs, demanding I stop being into women and come to God, or I'd be unloved and burn in hell. I called him a female dog and blocked him.
As you should. That is the only reasonable thing to do in this situation.
Can't we go back to the 80s when these people thought that D&D was literally Satan and didn't play it?
Oh, for the days of satanic panic when Christians didn't touch D&D with a 10-foot pole because they thought it was demonic.
God, that's weird to be nostalgic for that. Not that we were alive for it, but you know what we mean.
The satanic panic definitely reached into the 90s when we were kids, so to certain areas it still exists. But I love that the DM was like, I don't know where this is coming from. This is totally out of left field. Like, OP had already complained to you about this person and saying that they were making him, and then you're like, it's okay. They're not like this in real life. I think they might be.
I love how we've gone from a story from someone who was seeing stuff that wasn't there to someone who was completely oblivious to the huge red flags right in front of them.
I mean, kudos to the DM for finally kicking Fundy out. I think that was a wise move on their part.
At least they acted once it became a huge deal, you know.
Yeah, but they should have said something before all of that happened, because regardless of who this person is IRL, that character is low-key problematic. Nobody really enjoys having, well, okay, not nobody, but personally, I don't know anybody who really enjoys being preached at as roleplay. So that just doesn't seem like fun in general.
Hey man.
Hey, what?
What do you call a knight that's very secretive?
I don't know, what do you call him?
Surreptitious. And with that, we have definitely not been two kobolds in a trench coat. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and make the necessary sacrifices to Tiamat. We'll see you next time.